when you think about Fort Smith in 10 years and you're driving down Garrison, you're driving out here in Chaffee Crossing, what do you see and what does that look like?
We are at the beginning of an amazing transformation. I had the privilege of speaking to the Secretary of Air Force not too long ago while I was in Washington, D.C. doing some work. And he told me, he says, Mayor, nobody in the Air Force thought Fort Smith would be ready. But now here we are, and we're only 6 or 7 months away. We're gonna have aircraft on the ground in Fort Smith, Arkansas. What you've done is simply amazing. My name is George McGill, and I'm the mayor of the great city of Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Okay. All right, let's go back a little bit. I want to talk about where you're from. Where are you from? I'm guessing you're from Arkansas.
Fort Smith is my hometown.
Oh, okay. All right. And you graduated from?
I attended public schools here in Fort Smith.
Okay.
Went to elementary school, was named after Paul Lawrence Dunbar.
Oh,
it was Dunbar Elementary School. It's no longer there.
Okay.
And I also attended high school at Lincoln High School here in Fort Smith. And unfortunately, it's no longer here.
Okay, Fort Smith has changed, obviously, a lot over the years. And I can't imagine, looking at it now, what it looked like back then. Can you kind of paint a picture for me of what Fort Smith looked like back around when you were in high school?
Keep in mind, Fort Smith has always been the hub of manufacturing for the state of Arkansas. So with that said, the standard of living has always been above the typical Arkansan that may have lived in a Delta area where farming and agriculture was a source of income. So on my streets where I grew up, it was a typical Black community where aunts and aunties and grandmas and cousins were on the front porch late in the afternoon watching kids from all across the neighborhood play. So it was that type of environment, a very peaceful, comfortable, safe environment.
Okay. And then coming out of high school, did you stay here? Did you go to UFIS ever at school, or where did you go for higher education?
My dream was always to go to the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
Being naive, I wanted to go to the University of Arkansas because it was the state's flagship institution, and I had an older brother that attended the University of Arkansas. But at that time, I had no idea the challenges that I would face being a Black person on a predominantly white campus, particularly in the 60s.
Growing up, I guess on that note, were there many different walls that you ran into because of that? Other than just getting into school, maybe even like around the state, were there other issues that you ran into being a Black man?
Keep in mind the time. When I was in high school, I graduated high school in the summer of 1964. And that was approximately the same time that President Lyndon Johnson signed the civil rights legislation. Think of that. That up until the time I graduated high school, I had to live in a segregated city, segregated by law. But that did not hamper the quality of life that we experienced in the Black community. We had great leadership, we had great caring, and most of the fathers in my neighborhood, they were protectors and providers. And most of the mothers were the comforters and caregivers in our community. So we had that right mix of individuals that made living rather easy, even during those challenging times here in America.
That's beautiful. That's actually something I haven't really heard much of before. I did a documentary for PBS about 2 years ago, and we went all around the state of Arkansas, and we found the last existing Little Rock Nine, and we interviewed them and talked about it. And that was one element that I really didn't get to hear about, but I'm sure they experienced that too, is that what was happening was difficult, but I mean, based off what you're saying, the community, the Black community who made it, they made it okay, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that we had leadership in the Black community that understood the big picture. For example, I often say that Fort Smith is a city that's probably known for things that did not happen. For example, we didn't have a Central High School crisis that happened in Little Rock where you had National Guard and federal troops having to escort children to school and people standing on corners in the street saying profanities against children simply trying to go get an education. That did not happen in Fort Smith. The leadership, the business community, and those in the religious community and the Black community had a plan on how to integrate without having a crisis. And so they managed to do that where we didn't have racial strife that was publicly or front page newspaper kinds of things. Certainly we were not perfect by any stretch of imagination. But generally speaking, institutions were integrated very peacefully. I recall, like I said, we had just graduated from high school, and when the legislation was passed, a couple of buddies and I decided we're going to integrate every establishment that we could not go into. So we set about that day after the legislation was signed, we set out to walk into every establishment for the first time. And
Wow.
I know we'll recall it was about 4 of us went into the bowling alley. And we were expecting them to turn us away like previous to the signing of that legislation. They had a right to do and nothing we could do. But we knew now they could not turn us away because it was a public space. And so we were expecting something that was probably happening all across the country. But it did not happen to us. I never will forget the gentleman behind the counter when we walked in. And we were the first group of African Americans to walk into that establishment. It said Midland Bowl, and it's still there. We walked in, and the gentleman said to us, "Gentlemen, how can I help you?" And all of the anxiety, all of the anger, all of any kind of negative thoughts that we may have had, they disappeared at the politeness of this gentleman behind the counter. And oddly enough, when I ran for mayor at my victory celebration or celebration after I was announced as mayor, a young man walked up to me and said, "Mr. McGill, the gentleman that greeted you into Midland Bowl when you walked in as a teenager said that was my father."
Wow.
And he shared that story of you walking in, you and your friends walking in that day. At that time, certainly he had no idea, we had no idea you would be the mayor. He said, "But I thought I would share that story with you, that the gentleman at the counter that gave you your bowling shoes and took your cash was my dad. And I'm happy to be here to help you celebrate today." An amazing story.
That's powerful.
And story after story, time after time, I hear things like that about Fort Smith.
So I'm imagining as you're sharing that story, I'm thinking about you as a teenager or even younger, and you're observing these, African American leaders who are helping make or influence some pretty big decisions in small ways, in big ways. And looking at you now, is that what inspired you for higher forms of leadership?
I come out of a household of servants, servant leaders. My dad was a minister. My mother was a social worker. And they spent their lives helping and serving others. So that was a culture in my household, service, giving back, sharing, nurturing people. So that was a culture that I grew up with. We were, think of this, at one point, we were not allowed to have more than 3 pair of jeans. If we had more than that, my dad would always find someone in the neighborhood whose son needed some jeans. So we shared with them.
Wow.
We shared whatever we had with members of our community. So this idea of service is kind of ingrained into my being. And so public service came quite naturally.
Because you were already, I mean, your household was already built, had already built that foundation.
Sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what was that first step for you when you realized that, hey, maybe this is something I should look into when it comes to public service? When was that first moment?
I've been involved in helping, serving, volunteering, just about my entire life. My first experience at leadership, at the age of 16, my boys club manager picked me to manage a group of 12-year-olds on a baseball team. So there I was at 16 managing a baseball team made up of 12-year-olds, 11 and 12-year-olds. And so I guess that's where I cut my teeth of motivating people, inspiring people, and helping people achieve their goals. Picked that up from some of my young baseball coaches who certainly they could take a group of ragtag kids like we were and turn us into championship baseball players. But mainly they inspired us to excel. They didn't tutor us. They didn't help us with our math or English, but they had this talent of inspiring us to search knowledge. They inspired us to be better at anything we were doing. And so from them and from that early experience, that continued on into my life. At one point, I was president of the Darby PTA, believe it or not. Now, that was an experience, but a role of service. I currently serve on the Boys and Girls Club Board of Directors. Been there many, many years and have volunteered in the Boys and Girls Club for more than 50 years. And so this idea of giving back has always been part of my makeup, part of my life. It was, my dad would often talk to me about service and giving back. He said, God created us to serve our fellow man. And he would often tell me, said, there's no better place to serve than at home. I know you want to travel once you finish college, you want to see what the world looks like, you want to see what America looks like. But at the end of the day, the decision you're going to have to make is where do you want to serve? Not where you want to work, but where do you want to serve? And where's the best place to serve? And he always convinced me that the best place to serve is at home. That's where your legacy is. That's where your family and friends are. Give back to those who've had an impact on your life.
So when I'm thinking about some of the things you're saying, I'm again going back to really thinking about you from a young age, and I'm like, man, he has a spark, and he had that spark from a very young age. And as you're sharing your stories and you're sharing, I'm hearing that the foundation of that spark really came from having a good dad, having a good mom. That being said, what do you think about the epidemic going on now in the United States and maybe all over the world, but for sure here in the United States with fatherless homes? Obviously, there are a lot of fatherless homes, but the African-American community is maybe suffering from it more than others and has for a while. What's some of your thoughts about that?
To me, it's a tragedy. Just thinking about the impact my dad had on my life. He was the protector, and that's how I learned to protect my family from him and his actions. He was a provider, and we were taught that real men do what's necessary. He would often say, boys do what they want to do. Men do what they have to do to take care and protect their families. And that was ingrained in us. We were taught we had couple of sisters. There were 5 boys and a couple of sisters, and we were required to treat our sisters like queens, to give them the ultimate respect. That's how we learned how to treat women. I still get side looks when I open doors for women or take a chair out so they can sit down. But I was convinced that my dad would often tell me, say, we're going to have habits. We're creatures of habits. And you've heard that.
Yes.
We're creatures of habit. He said, but why not have some good ones?
Yes.
If you're going to have habits and you're going to have some, why not have some good ones? And so I kind of adopted that philosophy about life, being kind, being forgiving, caring, being soft-spoken, being meek. Nothing throws you off track, whether good or bad. Being meek, and be looking for opportunities to help. That's kind of the bedrock of my character, I guess.
Yes. My dad was he's always been a great father to me, and when I was pretty young, my father went to prison for doing some things, that he shouldn't have been doing. And at that time, my mom and my dad were not married, and I was the first child, dad, and they were having a second child. Dad went to prison. And one of the things that impacted my life heavily, obviously, I would not be where I am today, even close to where I am today, without him making this decision, is after prison, he went and served his time, and somehow he still managed to be a part of my life during those years that he was in prison. And, we would go visit him. He would draw pictures for me when, give them to me when I came. But the thing that impacted me the most is when he came back, he cleaned up his life. He married my mom, had another kid, stopped drinking, stopped doing, drugs, and he got his life together. You tell me if I'm wrong, but that's nowadays unheard of for a lot of men, like especially in that situation, they were not married. A lot of men, at least in my community, a lot of black men, they will go to jail. They will come out and they just live whatever lifestyle they want to, or they just choose a new lifestyle, and it typically doesn't involve the wife and the kids. And I say all that to say that there's a lot of stuff that my dad did that, I had to sift for. I had to go through and figure out what's good, what's bad, and I had to make some decisions on what to take out of those relationships and those teaching moments. But one of the things that he did teach me is to be kind, and to respect women. And I look now at where we are today and what we see on social media and the way that women carry themselves and the way that we as men look at them. And I'm like, man, I feel like we lost that art of what you're talking about, where we're treating women, all women, like queens. We're treating them with respect. We're opening the door for them. I didn't learn to do that. I didn't learn to open the door. But now that I'm listening to you say that, I'm like, you know what? How much better of a mindset will men have about women if we were all opening the doors for them?
Again, it was the culture we lived in. We were in high school. We were very respectful. We were taught to be respectful of women. We were taught to be respectful. Period. The idea being our community had a solid faith. And belief in God and Jesus' directions and commandments. We embraced that, and it always played out in how we lived our lives. We were always concerned about neighbors, making sure that no one in our neighborhood went hungry, went without shelter or clothing. No one was cold. We would rally around that family to make sure that they were as comfortable as anyone else. And again, it was just a culture. Grandmothers cared for all the kids in the front yard playing. My mom would feed all of the children. Everyone had something to eat. And that was the nature of our community. And so as a consequence, the idea of not having full citizenship, so to say, because of the laws at the time, that did not impact our quality of life like one may think. Places we were not allowed to go by law, we really had no interest in going. We made the best of everything in our community. And in my high school, education during my time, education was the front door to your dreams. You managed your education, and you could be whatever you wanted to be. Excellence was the word. Excellence was the theme. Excellence was the goal in every endeavor in our community and in our high school. And we saw it play out every day as we had one of the best choirs in the state, had one of the best bands, high school marching bands in the state. Our debate team was superb. Our arts and crafts were always exceptional because excellence was part of the culture. The way we dressed made other high school kids wonder. When we would travel, they said, wow, where are they from? Because we took a lot of pride in our ability to speak good English, proper dress, proper posture, all of those things that are first impression characteristics. And that's what it was like in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Everybody was striving for excellence. Even those kids that may have struggled in the classroom, there was an air about them that told you they had confidence, that they were hard workers. And that was the culture. And so it's evident now as I look back and I run into old classmates and friends, they have excelled in almost every profession, in almost every career. They've done exceptionally well. People that went to my segregated high school, they hold patents. They are scientists. They are physicians. They are, you name it. High posts in the military, all across the board, came out of a segregated high school that was rooted in excellence. The staff was excellent. Amazing teachers and instructions that would not accept mediocrity. They convinced us that we could perform the work and that everything we needed to do the work or achieve the goals that we dreamed about, said everything is already God-given. So use your mind. Work it. Make it pay. Make it pay. You've already been given this gift, this ability to think and reason, this ability to make decisions. Put that to good use. And as I run across my classmates now, they've done some amazing, amazing things.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be listening to some of your wisdom and seeing what it was so that I could see and recognize what we've fallen from now. Because there's some of these things, like the hardworking, definitely still see that present here in Fort Smith. But there are quite a few elements that when you look over, the whole state, even Fort Smith and even over the whole world, a lot of these principles we've fallen away from. And so one of the questions that I have for you is, the world evolves. Fort Smith has evolved and will evolve even more, which I want to hear a little bit later on from you about. But we can't really implement those same principles the same way that they were implemented before. So when we're talking about, being a hard worker or we're talking about respecting ourselves and having confidence, and we're talking about using our minds to critical think and create these different things that weren't created before and problem solve problems that haven't been solved before. How do you think we get back there in today's world?
Let me just share what I do. I lead by example. I don't lecture. I lead by example. I give Fort Smith my very best in leadership, representation, in every aspect of character that's needed to be the face of a city. The progress we're experiencing, the growth and development that we're experiencing, the number of people who are choosing to come our way and stay, that's no accident. It's no accident. I daily, day in and day out, do things on purpose to make a difference in people's lives, and most of that is based on what I do and say. I have the greatest opportunity to influence people based on what I do and what I say. And I know people like hearing something new, and they like telling something new. So day in and day out, I make sure I've got something new to tell them about their city, about their region and their state, all the positive things that often they overlook. And then I encourage them to tell someone what I've shared with them. And in 6 years, the attitude of our city and this region has completely changed. When I first took office, people had a very negative attitude about their own hometown. And it had nothing to do with the amenities or the quality of life. It had to do with their attitude. So early on, I began to change attitudes, one person at a time, 2 people, 5 people, as I moved about every day.
How long have you been mayor?
6 years.
Okay. When you think about Fort Smith in 10 years and you're driving down Garrison, you're driving out here in Chaffee Crossing, what do you see and what does that look like?
We are at the beginning of an amazing transformation. We haven't had an opportunity for economic growth in the state like we've got here in Fort Smith when we convinced the military, the Air Force, Department of Defense, to bring the most important mission they have, bring it to Fort Smith, Arkansas. They didn't pull our name out of a hat. We had to convince them this was the place to bring that mission. More than $1 billion investment initially. That's the spend here locally on the air base.
Wow.
Think of that.
Yeah.
$1 billion a year.
Wow.
Thereafter, anywhere from $500 million to $1 billion a year will turn over in our economy because of this one economic prize that we won. We are now a American defense community. Only 3 in the nation. And we are one of them because of who we are, how we embrace the military, how we work with the military, how we prepared for this mission. I had the privilege of speaking to the Secretary of Air Force not too long ago while I was in Washington, D.C. doing some work. And he told me, he says, Mayor, nobody in the Air Force thought Fort Smith would be ready in 2024. So we were looking at 2025 as the possible date to bring in the first squadron of jets. But now here we are, and we're only 6 or 7 months away. We're going to have aircraft on the ground in Fort Smith, Arkansas. What you've done is simply amazing.
Wow. That's amazing.
And the question is, he said, how did you do that? I get a chance to talk about good leadership and the principles of good leadership, starting with communication, listening. What is it they want? What is it they really want?
Mm.
And then communicating with our local partners, with the Army, with the Air Force, with our Chamber of Commerce, with our city leadership, having conversations about what we must do now we've captured this mission.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership 101, listening, communicating, collaborating, and cooperating. We've done those in an excellent manner, to the extent on this day there was a change of command at the 188th Air Wing here at Ebbing Air Base here in Fort Smith, Arkansas, that we are now an active Level 1 Air Force base once again.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yes, that's awesome. I feel like I wish I had a clapping sound effect there, because
I've applauded a lot today.
Yeah.
As I visited with some of the families that have moved to Fort Smith, that are moving to Fort Smith, had a chance to meet the new commanders that are going to be commanding our Air Force, and then the commander that's going to be in charge of the training effort out at the base. It's amazing. And the people they're bringing in are going to add so much to our community. And then when our foreign allies come, they're going to bring their families, their children. It's going to make that mosaic that we talked about. It's going to make it much more beautiful when you have families from Singapore.
Oh, man.
Have families from Germany, airmen and pilots from Germany, from Finland and Poland. They're going to be spending many months here in Fort Smith. And the beautiful thing about it, they will not be living on an air base. They're going to be living in and among our people, in our communities. They're going to be shopping in our stores. They're going to be using our medical facility. Their children are going to be in our schools, which is going to be amazing for our children to be in a classroom with children that speak German.
Different cultures.
Different cultures.
Yes.
It's an amazing time. It's an exciting time.
One of the things, and I actually don't have an answer for this, I'm just thinking about it as you're saying all this, all these people pouring in, all of this big change happening. One of the things that I immediately think is I love the cost of living in Fort Smith now. How do you think all this is going to impact that? Or do you think it's going to raise it at all, or slightly, or do you think it'll stay the same?
The impact of economics, inflation, it hits us all. But what we will always maintain, and I hope we do, is the quality of life. And quality of life means that we are braided as a community. And our hope is that our businesses and establishments, that they are always mindful to put out the best prices and the best quality, which will always keep our place a quality place to live and work. We are attracting more and more people from around the country, again, because of the cost of living, but then again, because of the amenities. The nature, Mother Nature has blessed us in this area with beautiful lakes, streams, and rivers, mountains, and you name it.
Yes.
In that way. And people are discovering that.
Yes.
So certainly things are going to increase, but our goal is to make sure that the job opportunities can accommodate any increases. You start having companies like Lockheed Martin, Train, and Gladfelter, and many others. And then the number of small businesses that are popping up all over adds for a great quality of life. So what we do is we manage the things we can manage, and we do that from at the city level. We work very hard to keep the cost of utilities down, the cost of water. We work hard to keep the water rates where they should be. We work hard to keep the sewer and other rates where they should be. But at the same time, we must understand that as we grow, we must maintain these services at a high level. We must meet the expectations of the public to make sure that our fire department continues to be one of the best in the nation. It carries what they call a Class 1 fire rating, which is the highest rating you can get, which impacts insurance rates for homeowners and renters. All of that plays in that our police department is recognized nationwide as having a very, very low contact arrest record. We have hardly ever, it's not often they have to make contact with someone to arrest them. That means less injuries, less chance for death during an arrest. And we work real hard. Our police chief works very hard to create that culture in our police department and make them understand they are a part of the community. They not only patrol and protect the community, they are a part of that. So as a consequence, our crime rate is continually dropping. Some of the lowest rates we've had in years. And again, it's because of this idea that we are one big family and we're all responsible for protecting one another. And that when we do that, when we have a peaceful community, when we have a community that believes in one another, a community that's willing to help neighbors in distress, a community that rallies around in emergency situations, like in the flood of 2019 or at the end of COVID. We came out of these situations in great style. In spite of the fact of the hardships we suffered, we came out and have completely recovered.
I completely forgot about the flood until you just mentioned it.
Most people do.
I mean, I remember it. It was so bad that we had to, coming from Little Rock, we had to go to Oklahoma and come back through to get into Fort Smith. We couldn't just come.
The interstate, unheard of, the interstate was flooded. You could not drive the interstate into Fort Smith. And then the bridge, Highway 64 bridge leading from Arkansas to Oklahoma was flooded. You could not get into Arkansas from Oklahoma or on Interstate 40. You had to take an alternate route. It was devastating. But at the end of all of that, I told a reporter from CNN who came to Fort Smith to see the devastation. And as we were standing on the Garrison Bridge looking at the river, seemed like it was almost about to come over the bridge almost. It was so high. I told the gentleman, I said, I know why you came to Fort Smith. You came to see how we suffer. I said, well, what I want you to do is come back in a couple of years to see how we survive, to experience our grit, to experience our love for neighbors. That's what I want you to see. So this flood, we don't have any control of. We watch Mother Nature as she can raise her head sometimes. But what we want you to see is what we do in the aftermath.
Calling out CNN. Come on out. Come back.
They're not interested in that.
They're not interested.
No.
Hey, I bet you they'll be back for the what's happening with the training program out here. I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal. And I'm sure once the first aircraft get on the ground, they may surface to do a piece on it. But it is huge. It's huge.
I want to talk about that more. So I want to break it up into 3 different quadrants. Can we talk about the product, like the post, as far as getting everything ready? Because Fort Smith has been doing a lot. If you look around, there's a lot of developments on homes. I mean, if you drive around where we are right now, there are homes, there are lots being built. If you go over Zero Street, and you go over to Rogers, I mean, you just see all the hotels popping up over there by the airport. What other things like that are happening in preparation? And then obviously we'll go into, what happens after, but I want to separate that. So what all have you been doing on the front end to make this work here?
once we became a finalist, so to say, in the decision making of the Air Force.
What year was this?
I'm going to say in 21, 22, about 3 years ago, when they began to make a decision about where to place the mission. And we were in the mix with 2 other bases. We made the final cut down to the final 3. And we decided that we were going to win. Nobody thought we could beat Michigan or Texas or the other bases that were considered. But because of who we are and because we know what it takes to survive, we turn those survival skills and use them to win. During the flood crisis, we knew it took communication, collaboration, all those leadership principles, and we didn't have a choice. The Corps of Engineers called and said, Mayor, there's a record-breaking flood headed your way, and the full impact is going to hit Fort Smith in 2 days. There was no time for anything else other than practice good leadership in a crisis situation. I measured staff and others on how well they perform in a crisis. We took that same energy and that same passion that we pulled together to address that flood. We brought that together to win in a positive situation. Same thought process. Begin to listen. What can you do, Chamber of Commerce? What can you do, City of Fort Smith? And so when we won that mission, that's when we began to go into phase 2. What do we do now? We bring the home builders together. So this is what's going to be happening in 3 years. There's going to be a big push and demand for new housing, and we've got to meet that demand. We've convinced the military that we are ready, and we're going to do our part. So home builders, you're going to have to step it up. You're going to have to go full force at building new residential areas, whether that's apartments, single-family dwellings, etc.
How many people are coming in a year?
I'm going to say initially you're going to be looking at 1,200, maybe 2,000, and we really don't know because you're going to see businesses and other entities surface to be near that mission.
Yes.
For example, Lockheed Martin has already set up shop here. Lockheed Martin is the manufacturer of the jet. And then you're going to see others that may be providing parts for the jet. They're going to surface. Then you have the United States Air Force and their team. They're going to be coming, and their families are going to be coming as trainers. Then you have contractors coming in to build the simulator. That in itself is almost an $800 million project. Just a facility where they're going to train these pilots.
So all these people aren't counted in that 1,200 to 2,000. They're just extras.
All of these are addition.
All right.
So you're going to see that. And then you're going to see people coming to go to work at these businesses and entities that are going to be serviced. So to give you a hard number, and then, with what I know, to even give you a range of what may or may not happen, I wouldn't, blurt out a number really, because it's going to be hard to tell. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to fall back on who we are as a community. The last thing we want to happen is that we've convinced them to bring that mission to Fort Smith. And we've convinced the Germans and the Finns to bring their families here. And then they get here and they find out we're something different than what they expected. All of a sudden they find out we are not a welcoming community. All of a sudden they find out that our educational system isn't what we said it was. Trust me, that's not going to happen. They're going to get exactly what we promised them. And when they come, they're going to be in a great community just like we promised. Our education system is prepared. University of Arkansas Fort Smith is prepared. Our children's organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Boys Club, Girls Club, all of these entities are prepared to welcome our new guests. So it's hard to say exactly how many people are going to show up. But at the end of the day, as we sit on this day, July 2nd, 2024, we have been designated once again as a Level 1 active Air Force base.
Wow. That happened today?
It happened today.
Wow.
With the change of command. New commanders that are here now, and their families are here.
Wow.
And so in October, November, we're going to be training people from Poland, I believe.
Okay. And that's what that... Can you explain exactly what that means? Help me to understand, not knowing a lot, if that makes sense.
We were a National Guard base. We were an active military base probably 10 or 12 years ago. And then when the active military, the fixed wing aircraft were relocated, we were designated as a National Guard base. That's where most of the personnel come in on once a month, train, and go home.
Okay.
But what you're going to have now is permanent Air Force personnel working every day, working on the base, working on aircraft. You're going to see it's an active Level 1 base. It's not a National Guard base anymore. But the neat thing about it is you're still going to have National Guard at the base. You're going to have active military Air Force at the base. Then we have a unmanned aircraft mission on the base. And there are other things happening on the base in and around the runways and the hangars and the jets. We actually train, there's a company that trains our foreign allies for what we call forward observation. That's for the audience that are artillery people.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we train people from around the world right here on how to call artillery or airstrikes. We train them on how to do that right in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
I was talking with some of the guys over here at the Connex bar. They all actually served out here in Chaffee, and one of the things that came to my attention that I've never heard about, and they pulled up their phones and they showed me, are air shows. I would love to see the air shows return. Do you think that's a possibility?
We're going to get some air shows.
Okay.
We've been promised the Air Force and some of our allies, they would be delighted to do that. We give them a couple of years to get their feet on the ground, get everything situated and get stabilized. Then I'm almost certain we're going to get an air show. And they're fun to watch. We used to have them frequently. It was not uncommon to have the Blue Angels show up for an air show, and we would see the latest in aircraft in their demonstration at an air show. So we're going to get one. That's my opinion. We're going to get one because, again, we're going to have the most sophisticated aircraft in the world right here in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Yeah, it's inedible. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. They're going to show it off to the public. So we're looking forward maybe to get a flyover a lot sooner than an air show. And that's to get a chance to see them come in at low level and rattle the cage, so to say.
Yeah. I've been in contact with some people who are in contact with, the people out here who are actually heading up this whole operation. And so hope to get them on soon so we can talk in detail exactly about, what's going on the base right now. And then what some of the things we're going to be seeing around Fort Smith coming up here soon over the next year. I'm already seeing some interesting trucks and stuff out here, some new military things out here. And so I'm curious about what's more going to come, and I'm sure everyone else is curious as well. When it comes to entertainment, it's kind of the last thing I want to touch on. When it comes to entertainment here, you know, there's a lot of young people like me who are moving in, or who will be moving in, but a lot of them come on through Fort Smith and they're going up to Northwest Arkansas because it has a lot there.
Sure.
And the problem with that, I mean, there's no problem with Northwest Arkansas, but the problem with that it is a higher cost of living. You know,
Sure.
it's much higher. And so coming back here, you know, I would love to see some businesses that are more who are open maybe even later for some of these families with young adults that aren't, you know, necessarily like the club scene or anything like that, but just maybe some arcade games or like I know Fort Kids. Have you heard of Fort Kids? Like we're excited about that coming because we can take our kids there and they can go. So do you see more opportunities of entertainment like that popping up here?
I do. I think that's going to be a natural as we grow, as we have different demographic, age-wise, that's going to show up. And smart business people recognize that, and they will invest. Smart business people, they invest where they have a great opportunity for return on their investment. And as the demographic change, you get the airmen in, which are going to be a much younger group of people.
They're younger? How old are they?
Oh, they're going to be. First, you're going to see families come in, but you're going to see these guys in their 30s, you know, 30s, early 40s. That's young.
Yes.
Really. You know, these pilots, they don't put kids behind the wheel of an F-35, but they're that generation. They understand the music. They understand all of that. And so we're going to see that. We're going to see that happen. That's my opinion. Business is going to seize the opportunity that are going to be coming our way. I can see somebody opening a nice German restaurant because of the contingent of Germans coming. I can see them opening up other establishments that will cater particularly to the personnel that will be coming from our foreign allies. So I can see those things happening. And it's, again, we're at the very beginning of a transformation that you won't recognize the area in the next 10 years. With the completion of Interstate 49 and other things happening, you won't recognize the place in 10 years.
Can I pitch you an idea and you tell me if it's a good idea or not?
Talk to me.
Okay, so we have all these empty barracks out here, which is very close, you know, to the base. And so all the homes are being built out here. And I think there will be more built more close to actually out here. But I had an idea to take one of these barracks and take, you know, half of it and make it a coffee shop. The other half, a daycare. So, you know, you have all these families coming in, you know, the husbands are going out to the base. The moms will stay at home more than likely with the kids. What if they can come to a coffee shop, co-working space, and they could check their kid in while they sit and have coffee with another mom and then just check them out when they leave?
You know how business is. It's how you market that. If you've done your homework, done your due diligence, and you decided this will, whatever it is, this idea will work, then you have to convince people to try. It's sort of like, the question is, why would anyone buy a Rolex watch for $10,000 or $15,000, whatever they cost? Why would they buy one of those when you can get a Timex for $39.95? They both tell time.
That's true.
You know, why would you spend $12,000? Why would you do that? It's marketing. It's what they say about it. It's what they say about a Rolex that make you want one. It's not the fact that it tells time. What their leadership will tell you, what they sell is luxury. They don't sell watches. They sell a feeling that you get when you have one on. It's the feeling you get when you have one. And there's a price associated with that. You ever notice a guy who gets it when he got his first Rolex? He keeps his hand in his face so you can see that Rolex. You know,
Scratching his beard.
yeah, scratching
Oh,
his beard.
man.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Ain't even got nothing there.
It's been a long day. Yeah. You spot that Rolex. It's the feeling you get by owning one. So that's what I do. I sell the vibe of Fort Smith. I sell that feeling that I know you're going to get when you meet some of our residents. That feeling you get when you know you can move about safely. That comfortable feeling you get when you know your children are going to get a great education. It's that feeling that you get. That's what makes it a great place to live. And I share this with you. The general that came here with the Singapore Air Force brought a delegation to Fort Smith, and we were wrapping up dinner one evening. And he turned to me and said, "Mayor, your city is magical." I said, "Now, General, I've heard Fort Smith described in many ways, but that's not one of them." I said, "Please explain." And he said to me, he says, "Mayor, I've traveled the world representing my nation. And when we move about, we wear this uniform of Singapore. See, I've been in Fort Smith about 4 days, and nobody has said anything out of order, never gave me a feeling of being threatened. The people have been overwhelmingly kind and generous. I've never felt as safe as I've felt in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And we want to bring our families here. I want them to feel what I've felt since I've been here." It's that, he says, hard to explain the feeling that I've experienced being in your city. He said that feeling is kind of magical because you don't get it everywhere. He says rarely you get it anywhere. He said, but it's here. So you can feel it when you walk among the people. So that's who we are, and
Yeah,
and I buy that. We
I agree.
are a magical place.
I agree. Just to touch on that closing here, that is so true. I moved back down from Dallas recently to Fort Smith, and it was because of the people. I miss the people of Arkansas. Even yesterday, I remember I was at a Lowe's shopping, getting some stuff together for the studio space here. And to be honest, I was having a hard day because trying to figure out funding for this whole podcast has been very, very difficult. And I just remember at Lowe's, I'm walking in, and a man and his family, I don't know these people. They look me in the face, right in the eyes. "Hey, how are you? I hope you're having a good day." I keep walking. I go down the aisle. I come back. Another person. These are not workers. This is just random citizens. Another person. Lady and her kids looks at me. And I'm trying to think what she said. She said, "Oh yes, I hope you're having a good day," and waves at me as she's going out the store, from the checkout. And I'm just, even in those moments when I'm like, man, everything right now isn't the best, these people make me feel like it's not as bad as it could be.
And that's true. As I think over my time as being the mayor and think of places I could be or things that I could be doing, and I think this gives me an opportunity to enjoy the things that I believe in. I get a chance to practice the truths that were taught to me by my dad. And it's an experience that I will cherish the rest of my life because it is a special feeling. I don't ever lose sight of the fact that I'm a Black man in a city like Fort Smith, Arkansas, whose demographic statistically speaking, would say that I shouldn't be the mayor.
8% Black people?
Yeah.
Yep.
Says I should not be the mayor, but I am. And people embrace that people have been so kind and generous, and they've enhanced the work that I do by giving to the city, by being advocates, by being voices for the city, by being guides for the city, sharing ideas with me for the city, and then investing in the city. I look at all the investment being made in Fort Smith. That's done freely.
Wow.
People feel good about the future of Fort Smith. And it shows up in the investment in new buildings and new activities. That's where it shows up. Money is being spent here because now there's a much stronger belief in the future of this city than I've ever seen before. And it's kind of humbling to be the mayor and see all of that unfold under my watch. It's an amazing time.
I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I think these conversations, you know, especially the one today that I got to have with you, are so important for people, young people my age and older and younger, to hear. And the reason for that is because, you know, I started this podcast to help, you know, these younger kids who are coming out of school or finishing college here maybe to stay and see that there is a lifestyle here. You know, you talked about how Rolex sells a feeling. I would say it's a lifestyle that they're selling. They're selling an illusion of a lifestyle. You know, if you buy this watch, you're going to live this lifestyle. You know, you're going to be saying hey to Kanye West. You're going to be, you know, feeling like you're Justin Bieber. But what I'm selling here is actually obtainable. These conversations that we're having, this is not something that we're talking about will be. It is now. These are real life, you know, things that are happening right here, right now. And you're one of those conversations. There are many of them. And so it inspires people who don't see that lifestyle, who are stuck in those situations. Maybe they're in East Arkansas. Maybe they're in some other part of Arkansas, and they don't see a lifestyle here that's obtainable. Now, listening to the people on this podcast, they can see that lifestyle, and it inspires them not to move out of state, but maybe move somewhere else to achieve that lifestyle. And I think it's super important. And so I want to thank you for being one of those people to inspire people who are listening now, who may be future mayor of somewhere in Arkansas, who may be future mayor of some other state. We don't know who's listening, but we're excited about what's happening here. And honestly, I can't wait to see what it even looks like once my 1-year-old is my age here.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a different place.
The goal is to have your 1-year-old choose Fort Smith as their home. That you won't have to leave home to see your grandkids. They will want to live here. And that depends on what we do and what we say about our city. I advise people often, be careful what you say about yourself, because it could very well be used against you. So when you talk about Fort Smith, be an ambassador, be an advocate. You could talk all day talking about the great things, and we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's enough good things going on in our belief system, in caring and giving and sharing, is such that we're going to prosper. So I'm encouraging everyone, be a part of that. Be a part of that. And I encourage everyone, invite your friends from around the country, invite your family members to come to Fort Smith. You know, pick out a good time when something cool is going on.
Yes.
If your family loves rodeo, we have one of the best in the nation right here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. If you like music festivals, we have one of the best right here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. We call it the Peacemaker Festival. Come. And if you are of Asian descent, come to our Lunar New Year. It's one of the best. And our Juneteenth celebrations are some of the best. Invite your friends to come to Fort Smith, pick out a time where something's going on and show them around. Certainly you'll be showing them around to show them the venues and they hear the music. But more importantly, they'll get a chance to experience the wonderful people that live here. Therein lies the difference.
That's a great closing statement. I'm going to close it there. Thank you again for coming on.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. All right.